Hello everyone. Good morning and welcome to today's The Hindu News Analysis. Myself Nidhin Kebiju, I'll be appearing for the civil service interview this year. In today's Hindu analysis, we'll be discussing about 7 important Hindu news which are important from the prelims, mains and the interview perspective. Before going to the articles, please pause for a second and attempt the question by yourself. After discussing all the articles, we'll be discussing this question at the end of the video. Okay. Coming to the first topic, March core sector output slumps 6.5%. Sharper contraction likely in IIP. So here there are two keywords here. One is the core sector. So there are 8 core industries in the country. Also there is another keyword here, that is IIP, that is Index of Industrial Production. It is a measure of the industrial output of the country, the manufacturing output of the country, right? So these two concepts are very important for prelims. We'll be discussing this in the coming slides. Also one more thing, this core sector, 8 core sector industries account for 40% of the weightage in IIP. IIP is an index. In that index, 40% weightage is given to these 8 core sectors, and the remaining other sectors will contribute to the remaining 60%. So you can see the graph here where the IIP, the core sector is contracted. Coming to the news article, output at India's core sector contracted by 6.5% in March, said the Commerce Ministry. Also, the index of these 8 core sectors, it forms 40% of the weight of the items included in the IIP. All of them reflected a contraction due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, analysts warned that the core sector data signaled a much sharper contraction in the wider IIP, especially in April, as several core industries were actually exempted from the lockdown. So what the analysts are telling is that, see, the core industries were exempted from the lockdown. They were still working even during the lockdown, right? Still they contracted so much. Still they contracted. So when we add the other sectors also, we all know there are 60% of other industries also, so which were mostly under lockdown. So when we add those 60 and this 40% of core sector, the IIP, that is the combined index of the IIP, is likely to have a sharper contraction, right? That is what the analysts are telling. So coming to the individual sectors, there was a 13% decline in the steel output, 7% fall in the electricity generation. Also, the sectors accounted for almost 40% of the index. Now, cement production, it crashed by 25%, natural gas by 15%, and so on. Coal was the only core sector which saw some growth, which are with an output of around 4%. So that is the only sector which grew. So that is all about the news article. Here the important thing is the prelims related facts, that is IIP. IIP is an index that shows the growth rates in different industry groups of the economy in a fixed period of time. So who compiles it? This is very important. Every report, who compiles it? That is the most important fact. So it is compiled by and published monthly by the CSO, Central Statistics Organization, which is under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. This is a very important fact. Also, the base year of the IIP is 2011-2012. So what is this base year? We'll be calculating the output based on the prices, right? For example, if 1 kg of 1 ton of some steel, what is the price of it? So price of it might be assume it to be around 50 rupees. Okay, 50 rupees. So in that case, that is the price of the present year, but present year can account for inflation also, right? So in order to cancel out the effects of inflation, we'll be calculating the output based on the prices of the base year, that is 2012, 11 and 2012. So what matters is what was the price of steel at 2011 and 2012. Based on that price, the output will be calculated. That is the concept of base year. Also, as we have already discussed, the 8 core industries of India represent about 40% of the weight of the items that are included in the IIP. So that is another important fact. So what are these 8 core industries? The 8 core industries are electricity, steel, refinery products, crude oil, coal, cement, natural gas, and fertilizers. So here I'll be giving you one homework. See, we have already told that these 8 industries combined, it will be 40% of the IIP, right? Also, among these 8 industries, the weightage is different. For example, one will be 10%, another one will be 8% of the weightage. So I want you to arrange these 8 industries in the decreasing order of their weightage, and please comment in the comment section below. Okay, so that they in prelims they might ask, for example, this sector has the maximum weightage in IIP, something like that. Okay, so arrange it in the decreasing order of their weightage. So coming to the next article, plasma therapy is no silver bullet. This is a very important article because this article is written by Dr. Balram Bhargava, that is the Director General of ICMR. So as we all know, ICMR is leading the research against COVID-19 in the country. So this article becomes very important from that perspective. Plasma therapy is not no silver bullet. So here the issues, as we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic, it has posed unprecedented challenges to governments, health professionals, and the general public at the large across the world. Now, coming to scientific research in medicine is the only means to overcome this issue of COVID-19. Now, coming to the case of the plasma therapy, we have already discussed this multiple times in about convalescent plasma therapy. What is it? The therapy involves infusing patients suffering from COVID-19 with plasma from the recovered patients. So, what is the idea here? In theory, the antibodies of the recovered person may help the patient's immune system fight the virus. That is the idea here. In simple words, assume there's a person who has recovered from COVID-19. His body will produce antibodies, right, to fight against the virus. We are taking antibodies from the plasma. We are taking plasma which contains the antibodies. We are taking plasma from that recovered patient and we are putting into the body of the patient who is suffering from COVID-19, thinking that it will help the suffering person fight the COVID-19 in a more effective manner. So that is the idea of plasma therapy. But the issue with this is that, see, theoretically everything is fine and it shows great promise, but it is yet to be validated. It cannot be deployed widely without caution, right? Why is it so? Because any medical thing, it should be 100% validated. Research should be very much proper before deploying it in public. Otherwise, it can have negative consequences. Now, to say whether with certainty whether a drug is truly effective or not, the gold standard in medicine is to conduct a randomized controlled trial where half of the patients get the experimental drug and the other half do not. For example, if there are 100 people, 50% will be given the plasma therapy and 50% will not be given any therapies. Okay, only if the patient in the first half, the first 50 people, if they show substantial improvement over the other people who are not given any therapy, then only it indicates that the drug is beneficial. So that is the standard in medicine. So without doing all these things, the Director General is telling that it is not possible to conduct the plasma therapy for patients. So even in these times of collective uncertainty are no reason to lower scientific temper. Here he is mentioning about an important keyword which is mentioned in the constitution of the country. Here I want you to please go back to the constitution and see under which part and under which article the constitution mentioned about scientific temper. Please comment in the comment section below. Also, science should be driven with reason and evidence, with hope as a catalyst, but not by either fear or populism. We should not act on medicines based on fear or populism. For example, we have seen issues where the American president Donald Trump is proposing his own ideas of drugs, like he was telling about hydroxychloroquine and he was telling about disinfectant agents such as Dettol and all, right? So this populism or fear, it should not be a catalyst in scientific research, whereas reason and evidence should be a catalyst. Pushing one or the other therapy without evidence or caution can only set back a larger fight against COVID-19. This is what the Director General of ICMR is telling. Now coming to ICMR, what is ICMR? ICMR, it stands for Indian Council of Medical Research. It is an apex body in India for the formulation, coordination, and promotion of biomedical research. So the main area of this is research, right? Also, it is one of the oldest and largest medical bodies in the world, formed in 1911. It's very old. It is formed before the independence also. And before independence, its name was IRFA. IRFA means Indian Research Fund Association. Indian Research Fund Association. And it was renamed as ICMR in 1949. Okay. Now again, revising what we already studied multiple times ahead. Convalescent plasma. People who are recovered from COVID-19 have antibodies to the disease in their blood. Doctors call this as convalescent plasma. Researchers hope that convalescent plasma can be given to people with severe COVID-19 to boost their ability to fight the virus. So this was the idea. In theoretically, this is fine, but as the Director General of ICMR says, without evidence, without research, it can't be deployed. Right. Now coming to the third article, virus was not man-made, says U.S. agencies. So there was this blame game going on between U.S. and China, with US president blaming China for the issues like making the virus, not controlling it, and even called the virus as a China virus, right? So, but the US intelligence agencies have concluded that the new coronavirus was not man-made or genetically modified, but say they're still examining whether the origins of the pandemic, whether it traces to the contact with infected animals or an accident in the Chinese lab. So here, though the agencies are telling that it is not intentionally made, but whether it is an accident in a lab or whether it was infected from an animal, they are still examining it. Okay. So in recent days, as we all know, the Trump administration have sharpened his rhetoric on China, accusing the geopolitical foe and vital trading partner of failing to act swiftly enough to stop the spread of the virus. Also, the Secretary of the State, Mike Pompeo, also pressed China to let outside experts into the lab so that we can determine precisely where this virus began. So, do you think China will agree to this? Definitely no. Okay, so China. So what was the controversy about? Why the doubt that this might have come out from a lab has this theory has started? This theory started because there is an institute called Wuhan Institute of Virology, just a handful of miles away from where the market was. The wet market we have heard of now. So just 13 kilometers from that wet market, there is this institute called Wuhan Institute of Virology. Also, they have published papers related to coronavirus. For example, in 2018, they have published a paper on bad coronaviruses. So the research on coronaviruses were already going on there. So this also helped in fueling the doubts whether the virus came from the lab. Okay. So what is the Chinese government respond? How did it respond? They told it to be purely fabricated. It was unfounded and purely fabricated out of nothing. So that is the expected reaction of the Chinese government, right? So this is all about this news. Okay, coming to the next article, crisis begs government support at 3.5 lakh crore. As we all know, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the government is providing fiscal stimulus. Already they have provided 1.7 lakh crore under the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. And it was given to main different sectors. Please go through those different sectors where the fiscal stimulus is given. Now, an organization, a rating agency called CRISIL is telling that the government support should not be limited to 1.7 lakh crore, it should be 3.5 lakh crore. Okay, coming to the article, CRISIL has pegged the minimum fiscal support by the government to counter the economic losses at 3.5 lakh crore. This includes the 1.7 lakh crore stimulus that was announced by the government earlier under the PM Garib Kalyan Yojana. Also, some other facts which CRISIL told us, it has cut the GDP growth projection to around 1.8% for the current financial year. But it also said that fiscal year 2022, it is likely to a V-shaped recovery at growth over 7% real GDP growth. That is a good enough growth, right? So this is what the article related to CRISIL talk about. So we have to read what is credit rating agencies, because CRISIL is a part of it is a credit rating agency. So what is this credit rating agency? It is a company that assigns credit ratings which rates a debtor's ability to pay back the debt by making timely principal and interest payments and the likelihood of default. For example, in the market there is a borrower and a debtor. I mean, lender and a borrower. Borrower is a person who borrows money. Lender is a person who gives money. Now, what this credit agencies do is it will rate the borrower. Assume I'm a borrower. I'm borrowing money from another person. So the rating agency rates my capacity to pay back. Only if I have the capacity to pay back, only then only the lenders will be interested in giving money to me, right? So credit rating agencies rates the ability to pay back the money timely, including the principal and the interest payments, right? So that is about credit agencies, and there are six credit rating agencies registered under the SEBI. They are CRISIL, which we already talked, then ICRA, CARE, SMERA, Fitch India, and Brickworth Ratings. These are the rating agencies which are registered under SEBI. Now, coming to the editorial of the day, religion and freedom. India must protect its freedoms and come down heavily on religious violence. So this editorial is based on the recent report of the US, right? The characterization by the US Commission on International Religious Freedom, that is USCIRF, of India as it rated India as a country of particular concern in terms of religion. So that is the basis of this editorial. You can just go through it. This is mainly a critical article against the government of India. So as we all know, in mains examination, it is suggested to avoid a total criticism of the government of India. Okay, there can be constructive criticism, but as we are preparing for civil service and we want to be a part of the government, just by telling everything bad about the government is not the right way to be a civil servant, right? So but here you get some good points also, so just go through it, ensure that you take the right thing from the article and avoid the wrong things, right? The negative criticisms. Okay, personally you can have any views, but when you write the exam, ensure that you don't be overly critical about the government. So India advertises itself as a multi-religious democracy and as an adherent to global norms of rule of law. It also aspires to be on the table of global rule making. So, for a country with such ambitions, its record on religious freedom as reflected through the events of the last 1 year is deeply disconcerting. So, what happened in the last 1 year? The issues regarding the Citizenship Amendment Act and also that is what the article is, and the ensured violence. Also, in the COVID-19 issue, also the some people try to make it a communal issue due to the spread due to the Tablighi Jamaat, right? So these are the communal issues which is happening in the last 1 year. Also, the catalog of religious violence, incitement, and wrecking of the rules of the law in several parts of the country remains an unsettling fact. So, what we have to do is we have to uphold rule of law as well as communal harmony, because it is very important for the functioning of any democracy. Okay, so that is all about the article. Now, coming to the another article, needed a pandemic patent pool. So this article tries to find a balance between intellectual property, that is patents. We have discussed about intellectual property and patents yesterday. Intellectual property relating to the COVID-19 vaccine. Also, it tries to balance the other aspect, that is the need to provide vaccines as early to the people in mass numbers, right? So every year in April 26, we celebrate the World Intellectual Property Day. Please I'll give you a homework. Why this day is celebrated as the Intellectual Property Day? Please try to comment in the comment section. So coming to the article, the purpose of creating and recognizing patent rights is for common public good. That is, innovation should be made public also, but there should be given some benefit should be there for the patent creator, the people who created the innovation also. That is through patents, right? So patents also need to be disclosed in the public to enable further research. So what should pandemics such as COVID-19 be an exception to this? So the article is asking whether should we not give patent, like should we not give the people patents to some particular companies. So what will happen if we don't give patents? The people who are doing the research, they won't be motivated to do the research because there is no benefit for them, right? Whereas there is a need for the world to get the COVID-19 vaccine also. So we have to balance both this. So for human lives to become normal again, vaccines or medicines are the only permanent solutions, as we all know. But even after we estimate that minimum will take 6 to 10 months for any vaccine to be available. Also, even when the vaccine is available, it is impossible to make it instantly available across the world. Why? Because this is because even after the approval is there for commercial production, individual countries individual countries have to approve it. So then the countries have to gear up for instant manufacturing and marketing of the drugs. So this will make the process delayed, and the people won't be able to get the vaccine at the earliest. So now with the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic also, there are several innovations, and definitely these innovations will be the subject matter of the patent applications. But there are already some issues which are associated. For example, one country have made attempts to get exclusive rights to the vaccine which is being developed. So these kind of issues would be avoided, right? So also the question arises whether the exclusivity that is recognized by the patent rights will be detrimental to the society. Will patents create a roadblock, or is there is a solution? So the question is whether patent rights and the necessity of essential medicines instantly, these, whether these two are contradictory, or is there a solution which we can get. So that is what the article is trying to say. Also, under the TRIPS, that is the trade related aspect of intellectual property rights regime, there are several tools such as compulsory licensing that are available to ensure access to medicines. So if this compulsory licensing is invoked, then the patents thing can be avoided, and the medicines will be available to the people, right? But there is an issue. This can demotivate the people who are doing the innovations, right? So, however, beyond laws, the society needs to respect innovation. We need to respect innovation also. We need to have access to essential medicines also. We need to have a balance here. So, to protect the sanctity and integrity of patent systems, and in order to ensure that anti-IP sentiments, anti-intellectual property sentiment is not generated globally, answers need to be found within the existing regime itself. So here the author discusses about one solution which can be done to balance both patent rights as well as getting the essential medicines to the people. That is to create a patent pool. So what is this patent pool? We'll be seeing it now. Patent pools are usually effective in aggregating, administering, and licensing patents related to specific areas of technology. So what happens is such pools are managed by a central agency. One agency will be there to manage all the patents, and also the patents will become a part of the pool, and the patents which become a part of this pool, that is the patent pool, will be readily available for licensing. So the licensing doesn't take time. That is the benefit of patent pool. Also, the patents are also, I mean, the innovators are also not demotivated, whereas the essential medicines will be readily available for licensing also. Also, the pools will even publish the royalty rates payable for such licenses, so that the innovators are benefited economically. So at the moment, individual efforts are being made by research organizations to create their own pools. So why to create many such pools? Let there be a global pool, one single global pool of which is related to COVID-19 innovations, and it should be managed by a trustworthy international organization. Can be any UN organization, WHO, or something like that. Okay. Also, the creation of a pool and immediate licensing will ensure that there are hundreds of manufacturers across the world. As a result, the vaccines and medicines will be quickly available. So what is the benefit? There is benefit for the innovators also, there is benefit for the people also. So such a pool needs the cooperation of not just countries and international organization, but the researchers, innovators, companies, and the universities should also cooperate to it. So the pooling of the patent resources, it is also in line with the Doha Declaration on Public Health, which is a part of the TRIPS agreement. So here we have seen two keywords here: TRIPS agreement as well as Doha Declaration. Okay, so the article is telling that pooling of patents is acceptable within the existing regime of TRIPS, that is the Doha Declaration. So public private partnerships need to be scaled up, that is between the researchers, scholars, universities, all those people, as well as the countries and the international organization. These partnerships should be scaled up, and creation of the PPP pandemic patent pool at the global level to pool all the innovations is the way forward. Let us not wait for any longer. So this is a very good idea to make the uh, to create a vaccine or any other innovations related to COVID-19 without hurting the sentiments of the innovators also, and ensuring that the medicines are instantly available to the people also. So pandemic patent pool, just remember, note this idea somewhere. You can use it in the mains answer writing, or any question related to trips, intellectual property, etc. can be you can add as a way forward. The patent pool can be added as a way forward in the answers. Okay. Coming to the another article, G attack to Manipur black rice. Gorakhpur terracotta. So this is another important article uh, because as we all know, GI tag questions are repeated in prelims. It's a very important, and it's in current affairs also. So which all are the two products which are given GI tag recently? Chak Hao, which is a black rice variety of Manipur, and Gorakhpur terracotta have bagged the geographical indication tag. So the two products are given here. Now coming to Chak Hao, that is the first one. Chakhawa, a scented glutinous rice which has been in cultivation in Manipur over centuries, is characterized by its special aroma. So, as we all know, what is the speciality of this? The aroma is the specialty here. It is normally eaten during community feast and is served as a chakhawa kheer. Okay. Also, it is used in traditional medicines also. Also, it takes the longest cooking time of around 40 to 45 minutes. So, these are the specialities of this chakhao rice, and these are grown in pockets of Manipur because this is a geographical indication tag. So, the geography involved is the area of Manipur. Okay. Now, coming to the other one, the terracotta work of Gorakhpur is a centuries old traditional art form where the potters make various animal figures like horses, elephants, camels, goats, ox with hand applied ornamentation. So, this is the image of the terracotta art. You can see a peacock here and some other figures also there. Okay. So, so you might have heard about terracotta in your art and culture syllabus also, especially when you are seeing reading about Harappan civilization and all. So please go through the basics also. That is very important. So GI tag, GI tag, it is an indication that identifies goods as produced from a particular area. These are the keywords here. Particular area which has a special quality. In this case, it is the special aroma for the Manipur rice or a reputation attributable to its geographical origin. So this is the definition of GI tag. So India as a member of the WTO has enacted the Geographical Indications of Goods Act 1999 and it has come to force in 2003. So the GI tag is allotted on the basis of this act, that is Geographical Indication of Goods Act of 1999. Okay. Also, the benefit of GI tag, it ensures that none other than those registered as authorized users, at least those who are residing in the geographical territory, are allowed to use the popular product name. So, only the people from Manipur who produces that black rice, they can uh, sell it using that brand, that Chakhao rice, right? So that brand can be used only by those people. So this will help in uh, giving livelihood to them also, as well as avoiding duplicates which are being made in elsewhere of the country, and using the brand name cannot be used by any other people. So that is the idea behind GI tag. Now coming to terracotta, we have already seen it. It is made up of baking terracotta clay. So clay is the keyword here. Okay, the as we have seen in the image above, it was made using clay. And what is the meaning of the word terracotta? It comes from Italian words for baked earth. Okay, it is often used for making pipes, bricks, and sculptures, as we have already seen earlier. Now, coming to the practice question which we have discussed in the beginning of the video, consider the following about IIP. It is first statement, it is published by the Labor Ministry. Second year, the base year is 2011-2012. Which of the above statements are correct? So coming to the first statement, we know that IIP is not published by the Labor Ministry, but it is published by the CSO, which comes under Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, MOSPI, right? So CSO is the answer. So the first statement is wrong. Coming to the second statement, the base year is 2011-2012, which is correct as we already discussed in the article above. So which of the above statements are correct? The answer is only two. That is option B, only two is the answer, right? So I hope you understood this. Please go through such indexes like IIP. There comes other index like WPI, Wholesale Price Index. Then comes CPI, Consumer Price Index. These two are related to inflation. So these indices, economic indices, are very important from the prelims perspective. Please just make a list of those indices, who publishes it, which is the base year, which are the sectors involved under it. Okay, and what are the key differences between each of these indices? This is a very important concept for the prelims. So go through it. Okay, I hope you like the video. Please subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends. Have a nice day. Thank you.